I just love writing about voodoo. It's literally one of the most important pillars of Haitian culture. There's this saying that Haiti is about 80% Catholic and 100% voodoo, and it's completely true because it's cultural.
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Juliana Lamy, author of the short story collection, You Were Watching from the Sand. The collection explores what it means to be Haitian and the honesty of that differential experience through the eyes of mothers and daughters, friends, and siblings who are ostracized and othered, sometimes within their own community.
My primary audience is always Haitian people. It's also making me think, even as I'm writing it in English, is this a story that would feel true or honest if I were to tell it to my mother or tell it to my father?
A graduate of Harvard and Iowa, Juliana says when she's writing, her characters are always Haitian and she's always preoccupied with language. How she creates rhythm and lyricism for an American audience that still translates into the two other languages she speaks. Plus, the reason she isn't ready to commit to a literary agent despite having published a book. And how she's correcting the record about the cultural and spiritual importance of voodoo. That and more is next, when Black and Published continues. Juliana, when did you know that you were a writer?
I've actually been writing since I was very little. I think that this is a pretty common thread between lots of writers. Nikisha, I'm sure that you can probably relate. I feel like I've been writing since I could string words together and hold a pencil in my tiny little hands. I've always been drawn to just the idea of story, especially coming from Haitian culture, which is so oriented around a lot of oral storytelling, particularly the way that emotional moments are communicated between people through story. I think that I've just always been very used to that. The convergence of my fascination with story and just my exposure to this wonderful culture was really what kind of made me realize that I was a writer, even as I was very little.
Can you talk more about how being Haitian and having an oral storytelling tradition from your background helped influence the kinds of stories that you tell on the page?
Yeah. So I think that something that is very particular to oral storytelling is just sort of the efficiency of communication. And it's just sort of, it's not just in the sense of being able to communicate actual technical story events to people. It's also being able to communicate a feeling to people. It's about being able to communicate a state of being to people. And I think that sort of like that efficiency of communication is something that I'm always trying to replicate in all of my stories. Even when I kind of like, I try to be very adventurous with language, and it's something that has continued in sort of all of my writing post this collection as well. But I think that it's something that I'm always preoccupied with, that I think Haitian oral storytelling and oral storytelling from lots of other different cultures do very well. That ability to make your reader understand something subconscious.
To me, that sounds like your goal is to always use the language to tap into the emotionality to make people either see something about themselves in your characters or ponder on some larger idea or topic of the world that you have created in your stories.
Yeah.
When you have gone through the process of writing the stories and workshopping them to get to the collection that you have today, what was the feedback like?
Something that I've always gotten from every single room is that your approach to language is very adventurous, but we have to square that with just the simplicity of communication. Can your reader actually understand what's going on around all of the very adventurous language that you're playing with? I think that that's something that I'm always conscious of when I'm editing. Now, I'm not really conscious of it when I'm actually writing because of the fact that my initial drafting process is so driven by language itself that I'm more preoccupied by the way that the language is moving and sort of like that linguistic momentum. But I think that the common critique that I get, that I apply later in my edits, is to try to maintain the integrity of the language while also making it so that readers can actually understand what's going on, which I think that is it's very important for any story, I suppose.
I guess I'm struck by the feedback of being able to effectively communicate because the language is too adventurous. And I wonder,
Mhm.
I didn't find the language too adventurous. I don't know if I even understand what that means, honestly. But what I did notice in all the stories is that the point of view is very much grounded in that of Black and brown people who have Haitian or Dominican backgrounds, who might be newly American or immigrants or migrants. And so there's an
Mhm.
otherness to the perspective
Mhm.
and to the storytelling. And then there's also some surrealism as
Mhm.
well. And so for some, that could be off-putting, but I
Yes.
don't necessarily know that that's adventurous, just a different perspective. I don't
Yes,
know if you care to comment.
yes, I would love to comment, Nikisha, because something that you brought up is just I was attempting to be tactful, but I think that the what I've encountered a lot in a lot of rooms that have edited or read these stories that are very very particular to Haitian culture. When I'm writing, all of my characters are Haitian. I'm not really thinking outside of that. I think that kind of like feeling of otherness that you've pointed out here, which is just like the mode of speaking, because I'm trying to essentially replicate modes of speaking in English that would make perfect sense in Haitian Creole. I think that sometimes that might be let's say the difficulty that some people who've read my work have encountered is just sort of the difference. I think that it is. Yeah.
You don't have to be that tactful here. But I wonder, and just out of curiosity, how many languages do you speak?
I speak three. I speak Haitian Creole, Spanish, and English.
I asked that question because I've had friends who speak multiple languages, and they talk about not only the difficulty of learning English, but then
Mhm.
translating from whatever their native tongue is into English every time they speak. And
Mm.
so I ask about the number of languages you speak because I wonder if trying to translate for an American English audience, but to convey the feeling that is used with maybe a different type of lyricism in
Mhm.
Haitian Creole or in Spanish, do you think that that might be some of the difficulty, or is it just perhaps the unwillingness of the reader, of some readers,
Mhm.
to trust you to not lead them astray? I'm for real though.
No, I love the phrasing of that last part especially. That's why I laughed. But yeah, I think that it's a combination of both. I think it's both like some of that unwillingness on the part of certain readers, and then also me trying to again replicate those patterns of speech in Haitian Creole and Spanish, which both share very similar grammatical patterns, by the way. I'm trying to replicate those grammatical patterns in English. I think it has to do with both of those things. Something that I've been trying to do to kind of get around that is to really, really focus on particularly the lyricism itself of Haitian Creole. So when I actually have those moments of language on the page, there's this natural lyricism that kind of like bleeds into English itself, and it kind of makes the language that I'm bringing about in English like even clearer.
Well, no, I don't want to make an excuse, but
Hmm.
I do find that as a reader, when you're coming to a writer's work who you may not know or you don't know a lot about, or their background, if you've never read anything from
Mm-hmm.
them before, there is a learning curve to
Yeah.
understanding their voice
Hmm.
and how they heard the sentences that you're reading,
Of course.
and really trusting them to not lead you astray or
Hmm.
waste your time in a story, right? Like I read a lot of books, a lot of short story collections. And
Yes.
so sometimes it takes me a little longer to get into some works than it does others.
Hmm.
But I find that if I take the time to go through it and to get into it and to try to understand what the writer is doing,
Hmm.
even if it's not something that I am immediately drawn to, that I can get it. And
Of
so
course.
I understand that there can be a reticence or a reluctance on the part of some readers
Hmm.
to invest that type of time, especially for cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities that they may not
Hmm.
share. all of that to say, when you got to your publishing process and you published through Red Hen Press,
Mhm.
what was the feedback from now your editors and your team about not necessarily how to make the book palatable, but
Mhm.
to make it the best that it could be while also still honoring your intention?
Yeah, I think that I was remarkably lucky with my process with Red Hen Press because of the fact that it's an independent press and it's smaller. I just got the sense that there was a lot less like strong arming me into making this collection more palatable to a wider audience because I think that the focus just as I was publishing this collection was to maintain the integrity of the language because I think that the very first thing that they said to me when they got this collection was that they were particularly struck by the motions of the language particularly, and they could tell that this was probably like definitely one of the strongest facets of the collection itself, and they could tell that it was something that I was really very preoccupied with. So I think that they were always really concerned with the actual like clarity of orienting narrative events, and it wasn't really a matter of how do you pare down this language to make it, you know, more appealing to a wider audience, or how do you pare down the intensity of these characters to make them more appealing to a wider audience. And I think that I was remarkably lucky in that respect.
How did you get connected with Red Hen Press? I know
Mm-hmm.
independent presses can be as mysterious as Big Five.
In around December of 2020, when we were all, you know, stuck at home. You remember this
Inside.
well? Yes, we were inside. It was literally just, you know, me and my computer and my parents in the other room. I think that during that time I was doing a lot of writing and I was doing a lot of submitting, but I was submitting a lot of short stories to different presses that I admired. And then I came across Red Hen Press, and I was uh, yeah, you always have to approach some of these independent presses with like a certain level of wariness. So I was like, Red Hen Press, it sounds a little suspicious. So I did my research, and it seemed like you know, a legitimate outfit. And I looked at some of the collections that they had published, and something that you can always kind of tell how an independent press is legitimate is the book covers. So I was looking at a lot of the book covers of their collections that they'd published and of the novels that they'd published. And I read some excerpts of the novels and things that they published. And I was thinking, oh, like this is a really interesting press. At that point, I still wasn't sure about you know, submitting anything to them because I was not agented at all. And I thought that that was like pretty much the only way that you could get published. Actually, I'm still not agented because I'm trying to like really kind of absorb the commitment of that as a concept, but that's another thing. But I found out that Red Hen Press had this short story collection prize that they were starting actually in 2020. It was called the Ann Petrie Fiction Prize for book length collections of fiction. And I love Ann Petrie. I loved The Street. I think she's phenomenal. And I felt comfortable enough to submit a collection of the stories that I'd written up to that point to this prize. And part of the prize was a cash prize, but it was also a publication as part of the thing that you won. So this collection actually was published as a result of that publication addendum to the prize itself.
I've had two previous Red Hen Press authors
Mm-hmm.
on, Kalisa Ray in the first season, who had the
Oh,
poetry collection Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat. And then
lovely.
last season, Carlos Allende with Coffee, Shopping, Murder, Love, which
Yes.
I loved. But I want to go to what you said about not being sure that you wanted to make the commitment to find an agent and all that that entailed, because I don't know if I've ever heard an author say those words in life to my face. So, as
Well,
I've so much of the writing process and then establishing yourself as a writer is working to get the agent, because it's
mhm,
the first hurdle, but it can also be maybe one of the hardest hurdles.
absolutely.
And so to say that, maybe I don't want that, can you explain?
So I'm not saying that I never ever want an agent absolutely like get every single agent out of my face. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't think that I'm ready for
Mm.
that sort of like commitment. It definitely feels like a commitment to me. And I recently got my MFA back in May, which I'm proud of. But I think that particularly in my second year of my MFA, we had a lot of visits from agents, and I got the chance to hear the way that they were conceptualizing relationships with authors. And the impression that I got is that it is a very serious sort of endeavor. And I think that when I am ready for that endeavor, I'll definitely know. But I think that the primary concern that I had for myself was that I want to approach an agent or come to an agent with a novel length work that is one just fluid story, that I have like a pretty good, in general, I'm a very opinionated and stubborn person. That doesn't mean that I'm completely uncompromising, but I want to sort of like, come to an agent with a pretty good idea of the story that I have in hand. And I think that part of my reluctance to initially get an agent was because I didn't yet have sort of like that book length story in hand or in mind. For some reason, I never thought of kind of, assembling all of my stories into a collection to go on the market for an agent. I don't know why it never came to me, but then I submitted to the prize and the collection was getting published anyway. So I was like, I mean,
Here
like,
we are.
no, like, yeah, I was like, well, I guess. But yeah, that's a little bit of my thinking around the subject. But
No,
yeah.
no. I appreciate that. And I do
Mhm.
understand that thought process, because I think before you really get into the publishing business side of
Mhm.
writing,
Mhm.
from the outside, it's a goal, but you may not understand the depth of what that means. And which is that, having an agent is a business relationship.
Yes,
It's not just, oh,
absolutely.
I have an agent to brag. It's a business relationship.
Mhm.
And so you don't want to enter into a business deal of any kind when you're not ready. And I think
Mhm.
it takes courage and honesty to admit as a writer when you're not ready for that, and
Mhm.
to know that maybe you should wait a little while until you think you are ready. But I also think there is a disservice that publishing has done to tell short story writers that
Mhm.
um, you're not serious until you have a novel,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
we know that that's not true either. So I see both
Absolutely.
sides of that there, but I was just kind of
Yeah.
curious. Um, so then once you and your team, your editors decided at Red Hidden Press that you didn't have to make too many changes
Mhm.
or do too much with the language, because that was very important to you. What has the reception been now that the collection is out?
I've been really just kind of shocked and floored by the reception. I think that because of the fact that I was going into this publication experience with no sense of what it would be like, especially because I could only think of publishing in the sense of those very kind of rigid steps that I'm sure that we're both familiar with. It's sort of you write something, you get an agent, the agent sells it, the publication house puts it out. That was the formulation that I was used to. Like going on this journey where like I submitted these stories and it won a prize and it was being published. I had absolutely no idea what to expect, and I've just been really really shocked at how kind and excited people have been about this collection. I remember I had my book launch party in Iowa City because I got my MFA from the Iowa Writers Workshop, and I had a lot of friends who were still there. I thought it was going to be like this super sort of intimate thing with maybe 4 or 5 of my other friends just celebrating this collection of stories that I put out. I was really, really shocked at just how many people showed up to this book launch. I didn't have a sense maybe of how much reach this collection would potentially have. So like just initially going to that book launch party and seeing like so many people there really, really shocked me. And then also just like going to other bookshops and book signings and just seeing the way that people were open to the way that I was describing these stories, and just kind of seeing like the spark of fascination kind of light up in people's eyes. And they hadn't even read a single story from the collection. But I think that I've just been so grateful at just sort of like the openness of the literary community to just like I'm essentially a baby author, right? So just I've just been like so grateful and just so shocked by the openness of people, the willingness of people to engage with these stories. And then they're actually taking a lot of the subject matter that I'm talking about in this collection in hand and analyzing it in ways that are so interesting to me and sort of like making me think of the stuff that I have written in a different way. So yeah, so just yeah, I've just been overall, to sum it up, just so grateful about the reception that I've received.
All right. So with that said, let's get into the collection. If you could read a
Of
little bit from one of the
course.
stories, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. You Are Watching from the Sand is a collection of stories featuring Haitian men, women, and children who find their lives in flux due to the environments around them or situations of their own making. From horror to surrealism, the stories tap into the perspective of living on the periphery, even when you're the main character in your own story. Here's Juliana.
So the story I'll be reading from is The Oldest Sensation is Anger. And this is the second story of the collection. This is a story about a mysterious girl who emigrates from Haiti. She is a adopted child of a family friend, and she moves in with the daughter of that family friend. So this is The Oldest Sensation is Anger. Claudette's girl shows up to Nadia's apartment with a Simpson suitcase and a broken arm. It's May. She has ropey scars on her arms in the part of her chest that Nadia can see, ribbed pauses that turn her into a body stuttering. Her adoptive mother, Claudette, a family friend, once drank from the river where panicked seamstresses once tossed the cocaine corrupt Haitian colonels expected them to sew into soon-to-be exported quilts. Claudette blames the cocaine water for the hysterectomy that hitched her to 2 kids when she'd wanted 3. And she swears to this day that she can feel poison fattening inside of her. Shay is the orphan she adopted as her third. Shay's head is shaved. Nadia can see the tiny stalks of her follicles. They're the same age, 20, but Shay looks younger, her 20 powdered across curtain rod collarbones and around her face. Here Shay is now, the first time Nadia has ever seen her in person. Around her neck, she wears a choir lady's rose pink scarf tied like an ascot. Fiancé killer. Nadia has heard the rumor, but it doesn't scare her like it should. All it makes her want to do is stare and stare, till Shay's maybe killing part would have to run through the back of her head, tear the crown of her skull off its hinges to escape Nadia's notice. Nadia stares at her head for so long that Shay rolls her eyes and says, "You want to rub it for good luck?" Nadia reaches a hand out to do just that, and Shay smacks it down. The hit makes Nadia forget that she's the taller of the two. Shay, face carefully still, except for the up, down twitch of her bottom lip as she speaks, says, "Don't touch me. You offered." Shay cuts her eyes at Nadia and says, with not a bit of her joking from before, "Don't you ever touch me." Nadia leads Shay to the back of the apartment with this new, immediate tenseness between them. "This is the room we'll share," Nadia says, opening the door to the bedroom. Nadia has issues with the room that she's strangely too embarrassed to admit to Shay. The room runs warm, the paint peels, and the latchkey middle school kids, whose parents work until dawn hours, use the drop ladder at the base of her fire escape as monkey bars for fun on weekends and sometimes on weekdays. Sometimes she wakes up in the middle of the night to balls melting in moonglow and catches the drywall mid-vanish while disembodied clanging and talking ring out from somewhere outside. In those moments, she swears that she's caught, without her permission, waist up in the jaws of something. And I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. So that particular story was from the point of view of a Haitian immigrant arriving to stay with a family in America and working and learning. And then there's a big secret reveal at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It talks a lot about injuries and things of that nature. I believe the story We Feel It in Punta Cana is about what it's like to be a Haitian immigrant in the Dominican Republic.
Yes, exactly.
And even though it's the same island, which I also have questions about. And then you have a lot of other stories of just about that immigrant experience in South Florida, which is very specific, and the community that is made amongst each other, but then also the otherness that happens between parents who may have been the immigrants and then their children who are born there, or the children who, because of going to school, become much more Americanized than their parents would like.
Right.
And covering so much of that ground about what it means to be, I don't want to be offensive, but that kind of different. What does being Haitian mean to you, writing for not just an American audience, but a Black American audience as well?
Whoa, that's such
I know.
That's a big question.
I know. I'm sorry.
No. It's a big question, but it's very, very important. I don't think I think that I could spend the rest of my life trying to find the perfect answer to that question. But I think that I'll attack this question from the angle of sort of what it means to me to be a Haitian person, writing these stories not only to Haitian people, but to other groups of people who are also going to be reading them, is that I am exploring a variety of different Haitian perspectives. Because even though, in a lot of ways, the experience of being Haitian in the United States is very similar for a lot of Haitian people, particularly when it comes to labor and just sort of the way that immigrant labor is exploited in the US. And then just sort of the ways that kind of sometimes Haitian people themselves silo themselves off from other groups of Black people. Even though those similarities do exist between Haitian people and groups of Haitian people, I think that my primary concern as a writer, as a Haitian writer, is to always explore different perspectives on the page that make it clear to anyone reading that Haitian people are not a monolith. But at the same time, there is just sort of like this shared cultural understanding that I'm always tapping into. Because of the fact that I'm always aware of the realities of my audience, I think that my primary audience is always Haitian people. That's always my focus. I was actually talking to my brother the other day about how eventually I want to get to a point where I am able to translate my own English stories to Haitian Kreyol. Even though I'm fluent in Haitian Kreyol, I don't have like the literary Haitian Kreyol down pat quite yet. But having that as like a long-term goal for myself, it's also making me think, even as I'm writing in English, is this a story that would feel true or honest if I were to tell it to my mother or tell it to my father? How would they feel about the way that Haitianness being represented in the story? And would they feel that this feels Haitian? So I think that sort of like my primary audience is always going to be just other Haitian people, and then my primary objective on the page is to explore a variety of different Haitian perspectives.
I'm listening to you speak, and I think what I'm wondering is that as a writer of Haitian descent, a Haitian writer, do you feel the need to correct the record about what it means to be Haitian? Because I feel like there's a global misunderstanding of Haiti, of what it
Mm-hmm.
means to be Haitian, and how the first Black nation was exploited and taken advantage of to the point where now it's seen as the world's charity case.
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of ways, I do feel that responsibility. As I get older and as I learn more and more about just like the geopolitics surrounding Haiti in the broader sense, but I'm also learning more and more about these sort of specific things that have happened to my parents both inside of Haiti as a result of those geopolitics and outside of Haiti as a result of those geopolitics. Again, going back to this idea of labor and just the way that they're exploited because of that. But the fact that there are so many undocumented Haitian laborers in the United States is a direct result of a lot of those geopolitics that have turned Haiti into like very good phrasing, the world's charity case, and just sort of like the way that it's being seen in that light. So I think that as I get older, I'm definitely feeling more and more of a responsibility to kind of correct the record about Haiti. But I think that is a responsibility that's always in the back of my mind. It's not something that I think ever kind of governs the types of stories that I tell, especially because of the fact that I think that if I let that feeling govern too much what I write, I wouldn't write certain things because I write a lot about the more unsavory parts of Haitianness. I write a lot about voodoo, especially now. And I think that like coming from even like an evangelical Haitian family as I do, it has been a little bit like a culture shock within my own culture, learning so much about voodoo because of the fact that I didn't grow up with it. So I think that if I let that sense of like responsibility, even though I do feel a little bit of responsibility to correct the record about Haiti, if I let that sense of responsibility kind of rule me too much, I wouldn't be talking honestly and compassionately about all of the different aspects of Haitian life that I want to talk about. I think that it would limit me if I wanted to paint Haiti as this sort of like see, like we're not scary and we're just like you and sort of like yay, like come visit, give us your tourist dollars. I think that it's definitely a line that I'm trying to balance. And I just like I just love writing about voodoo. I think it's literally one of the most important pillars of Haitian culture. There's this saying that Haiti is about 80% Catholic and 100% voodoo, and it's completely true because it's cultural. Yeah.
You brought it up, so I'm just going to go with it because I called it surrealism
Uh-huh.
because I didn't want to
You
put
did. It's
no
accurate.
labels on anybody. I was like,
Uh,
but you called it voodoo. So here we are
yes.
in talking about spiritual practices,
Hmm.
religious ways. You just mentioned a statistic, Haiti might be 80% Christian, but 100% voodoo because it is cultural.
Yeah.
And you talk about how voodoo is severely misunderstood. Because I've had people say, I can never go to Haiti and I can never go to New Orleans because people say that they made a deal with the devil and did voodoo, and that's how they won against Napoleon. And I was just like, wait, what? I don't even understand that logic.
So let me just open up by saying that if any country or region in the entire world has made a deal with the devil, it is the colonial countries that like took over the other countries. Because how do you do that without like some evil force on your side? But getting into like my actual answer though, I think that the terror that is elicited, just from these like misconceptions of voodoo and of hoodoo and other, folk cultural practices. Santeria has the same experience. It's just really part and parcel of, it almost feels like this centuries long punishment that Haiti has been enduring ever since it was able to free itself from under the weight of colonialism. And I think that the way that voodoo is portrayed here in the modern day is an extension of this idea of just like black barbarism and Haitians being barbaric, and this idea that sprung up as a result of the Haitian Revolution. Right after the Haitian Revolution, there was a lot of just sort of like academic talk specifically about how barbaric the Haitians were, obviously by anti-revolutionary camps, and sort of like, look, and they would use voodoo as a sort of like the proof of that barbarism. And it was much more explicit then. And now it's been happening for so many years and decades that it's become sort of implicit in a lot of cultures and sort of subconscious in a lot of cultures. It's almost become like an inherited fear of Haiti, and in a lot of ways, I think. And then it's also just sort of so we have like that kind of like that weight of history on the one hand of voodoo always being connected to this idea of barbarism from the late 1700s. And then now we have this extremely old idea of anti-blackness in general, just writ large globally. And that is something that is also kind of injecting and shaping the way that voodooism in Haiti is being looked at. And then we have this third thing that is also that people look at the poverty and the suffering of Haiti, which is definitely an actual reality for a lot of Haitian people. They see that, and instead of ascribing it to geopolitical forces and invasions and things like that, they're ascribing it to, especially if you're a more spiritual person, they're ascribing it to, oh, Haiti must have made a deal with the devil, and here is the proof. Look at how much they're suffering. How can any group of people suffer this much if they hadn't done anything wrong? And that's the eternal question, right? So yeah, so we have these three things. We have just the historical weight of voodoo always being connected to barbarism, just like general anti-blackness, and then just like looking at the misery of Haiti, the misery experienced by some Haitians, I should say. And they say that essentially the reason behind all of that misery is, the fact of voodoo, the fact of this darkness that is this hanging cloud over Haiti, essentially.
The cultural and spirit ways of Haiti and Haitian people aside, you write a lot in the collection about familial relationships, as well as relationships between friends, as well as some sexual identity stuff that I was surprised to see, but I thought it was very delicate in the way that you handled how some people from Caribbean, West Indian backgrounds hide the queerness of their identity because of the cultural mores around it. In writing those characters, the friends, the boys who are friends especially, as well as some of the mother-daughter relationships, how important is it as a Haitian person, but then also as a writer, to render those relationships and have those relationships that do speak of community and, I guess, for lack of a better word, hey, we're just like you, in an assimilationist type of thing, right? I'm sorry if that's an
Yeah.
ignorant question.
Oh, it's not at all. I think that it's very important for me to explore these relationships because of the fact that we are like other people, and I'm speaking about Haitian people and Caribbean people as a monolith again, but we are like other people, but at the same time we are very, very not. Like the experience of being Haitian or the experience of being Caribbean is so, and I say this like with all love, it's so strange. It's so like we're such a weird group of people in the way that we interact with people, in the way that we establish relationships, just kind of trying to encapsulate the strangeness of that in relationships on the page has always been very, very fascinating to me. And I think that the reason why there is always like some sort of like weirdness between every single one of the relationships that I portray in each of these stories, not only is it just like narratively interesting for me as a writer to write, I think that it's sort of like it speaks to the actual experience of being in a culture that is so and then I say this again lovingly weird, so so strange and so distinct. So yeah, I think that I'm always concerned with that, and I think I'm always concerned with like the I like to call them like oblique relationships between people. So I think that even though I do write a little bit about mothers and daughters, I was really concerned, especially with the story that I read from The Oldest Sensation is Anger. I was really concerned about focusing on the relationship between this adoptive child and this biological child. And then in other stories in the book, I'm concerned about relationships that are a little bit not as straightforward as parent child, even though they are present, or, you know, sibling sibling. I think that I'm always kind of like interested about the strange ways that people wind up being related to each other.
Or just
But yeah,
close.
yeah, or just close, exactly.
Cool. So I want to go to a speed round in the game before I let you go for the afternoon. What is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. So I love The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. And it is definitely a novel that has really influenced the way that I think about just literary language. And it's set in India from 1950s to the 1990s. And it encapsulates a lot of political shift. And it is just like unabashedly political while still having so much heart. I think that I just admire it so much. I also love The Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. And then I also love Viet Thanh Nguyen's work. So I was really, really obsessed with The Sympathizer for a while. I think that whenever I remember it now, I'm still like just floored by that book and the way that just sort of like Vietnamese life and just sort of the Vietnamese War is actualized and just made very, very real in the lives of the characters in that book.
Who is your favorite author?
So currently, I think that my favorite author is Louise Erdrich. She is an Indigenous author who is just like phenomenally prolific. She started off as a poet, but she's currently writing fiction. And again, the methods by which she like just like bends language, just like some of the most beautiful writing I've ever encountered. And then also she works a lot with the folk myths of Indigenous tribes. But I think that the way that she is sort of like encountering oral traditions in her writing is something that I really, really admire. So yeah, I think that she's currently my favorite.
And
Yeah.
because of your love of language and syntax and how you use it, and what you just answered about your favorite author, who is your favorite poet?
Oh wow. So I love Denez Smith. I think that they are oh God, like I really don't have many words to I don't even know how to put it into words. Just like the depth of feeling that I get from reading their work is just like something that I've never really experienced with other written work. I'm like, how are you doing this? Like they have a gift. It's amazing.
They do. If money were no
So
option, where would you go? What would you do? And where would you live?
oh my gosh. So if money was no option, I have been getting like a really serious case of like wanderlust. I want to like explore lots and lots of places, but I also have this weird thing with just tourism in general, especially considering like just like the history of tourism in the Caribbean. I have a complicated relationship with tourism, but I think that if I could travel anywhere, I would travel as many places as I could, probably starting with southern India, and then probably just sort of like working my way slowly around the globe, continent by continent. I think that that would be very, very cool.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Um, Name three things on your bucket list.
I want to write a memoir about my father's experience in Haiti, but also just sort of like bouncing around the Caribbean as a laborer. And then second on my bucket list would be to help my brother with this dream that he has of building this sort of engineering school in Haiti for other kids who are really interested in engineering because he's a mechanical engineer, getting his PhD in Miami. And then the third thing on my bucket list, I think ultimately like I would really, really love to teach at a university. I think that there's particularly something lacking in the academic understanding of Haiti. And I think that that
Mm.
is something that I really, really want to kind of like roll my sleeves up and get into eventually.
What
Yes.
brings you joy?
Is it too hippy dippy to say the sun? Because I spent 6 years living in, first I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then I was in Iowa, both notoriously very snowy places. And also just like I don't know, just like the experience of living places for 6 years where just for half of the year, it's just dark and you just have to get used to it. Like it gets dark at 3 p.m. and that's just your life. But now being back in Florida, I'm like, I don't even know why I ever left a place where the sun is out constantly. And whenever it like rains here, like every, I guess, like 3 weeks that it rains here, I'm like frowny and I'm pouting. But yeah, I think that I'm just really, really grateful for just like the sun and just sort of natural beauty. I take a lot of natural walks. So those things definitely bring me a lot of joy. And I didn't realize how much joy until I moved back.
What brings you peace?
Being able to be alone, I think that this is probably an experience of a lot of people who are naturally introverted. I think that the only way for me to reset really is to just like completely just be alone and in silence. I do all of my best work in silence. I feel, rejuvenated when I am in silence. Honestly, like I could be, like staring at a wall doing absolutely nothing, but if I'm doing it in silence by myself, I feel like I have reset.
Awesome. And so our game is called Rewriting the Classics. Classic is however you define it.
Uh-huh.
Name one book you wish you would have written.
Wuthering Heights by Charlotte Bronte. I think, hear me out.
I like the book, so I'm not mad, but
Yeah,
I
I
was not
love that
expecting
book.
that.
I saw it in your face. I think that that book has probably had one of the biggest impacts on my life as a young reader, and just sort of like being able to, obviously it's written in like that, old-timey Victorian way that a lot of classics are written in, but there was something very almost like accessible and penetrable about the language there. And I think that I was just really struck by the beauty of that. I'd be really, really interested in trying to undertake that same level of searching for beauty and building character and building the story that spans generations.
Name one book where you want to change the ending, and how would you do it?
Ooh, I would really like to change the ending of The Sympathizer, not because I completely disliked it, but because I think it might have been too much like a setup for a sequel. And there was eventually a sequel to the novel, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this would have been such a phenomenal self-contained novel. I was just like,
Mm,
why didn't you just leave it alone?
I love that you have strong opinions, so I really hope you answer this next question. Name a book that you think is overrated and why.
Oh my God, I have to
They don't have to
go.
be alive. No,
Oh
no, you don't
my
have to go.
I think that I'm like talking in quieter tones now. I think that are you familiar with Britt Bennett? I feel like it's impossible not to be.
I am.
Um, I read The Mothers last year and I really didn't like it all. I thought I thought it was I thought it was heavy-handed. I thought it was predictable. I was really kind of shocked because I had really hyped it up in my head because I've been like reading reviews um and I haven't read the Vanishing Half yet but obviously I've been hearing a lot about the Vanishing Half in general, and I was like, oh, like if I'm going to read this novel, I kind of want to start with the other work on her resume, I suppose. But yeah, I really didn't like The Mothers, and I really do think that it's overrated. Um it's a very, very breezy read in a way that I don't think it should have been, especially considering the subject matter that it handles. I was like, this should not feel like a beach read to me. But yeah.
Final question. When you are dead and gone and among the
Mm.
ancestors, what would you like someone to write about the legacy of words and work that you've left behind?
Yeah. I would like someone to write that I moved them in some way. I think that sometimes, especially in the kind of irony obsessed culture that we live in, where earnestness is kind of seen as a weakness, I think that sometimes, like, as a modern writer, it feels a little too ambitious or too egotistical to say that you're trying to move people when you write. But I think, like, I really want that. I want part of my legacy to be when I read the things that this person wrote, the things that this author wrote, I felt moved. And I think that that is like doubly important to me, considering just how much I love and care about the group of people that I'm writing about.
Big thank you to Juliana Lamy for being here today on Black and Published. Make sure you check out Juliana's debut short story collection, You Were Watching from the Sand, out now from Red Hen Press. And if you're not following Juliana, check out her website. It's julianalamy.com. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Juliana about the new novel she's working on. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holla at y'all next week when our guest will be Vanessa Riley, author of the novel Queen of Exiles.
I've always loved Regency romance. I believe Jane Austen was my gateway drug. And when I read Sanditon, which is her, unfortunately, unfinished novel, the richest woman in the book is a mulatto woman from the West Indies. And everyone is scheming to marry her because of money. Money trumps race.
That's next week on Black and Published. I'll talk to you then. Peace.